take an earth marble, and I'll speak to you later about what to do with it. I'm hoping that I don't see them rolling around on the floor. But while you're hearing the message and while we're doing the meditation after a while, you'll see the reason why you have these. Many people throughout the years have reflected on the relationship between the earth and its people. Explorers, philosophers, musicians, poets, theologians, all have reflected on the relationship. I suspect that there are folks who give very little thought to the topic. As a former kindergarten teacher, I feel a special obligation to younger folk to help them appreciate the planet. And I've given some information to Sarah to share from NASA that's been shared as curriculum for 5th through 8th graders. And I asked if she would read that material because my voice is soon fading.
Earth is our home planet. Scientists believe Earth and its moon formed around the same time as the rest of the solar system. They think that was about 4.5 billion years ago. Earth is the 5th largest planet in the solar system. Its diameter is 8,000 miles, and Earth is the 3rd closest planet to the sun. Its average distance from the sun is about 93 million miles. Only Mercury and Venus are closer. Earth has been called the Goldilocks planet. In the story of Goldilocks and the 3 bears, a little girl named Goldilocks liked everything just right. Her porridge couldn't be too hot or too cold, and her bed couldn't be too hard or too soft. On Earth, everything is just right for life to exist. It's warm, but not too warm. And it has water, but not too much water. Earth is the only planet known to have large amounts of liquid water. Liquid water is essential for life. Earth is the only planet where life is known to exist. What does Earth look like? From space, Earth looks like a blue marble with white swirls and areas of brown, yellow, green, and white. The blue is water, which covers about 71% of Earth's surface. The white swirls are clouds. The areas of brown, yellow, and green are land. The areas of white are ice and snow. The equator is an imaginary circle that divides Earth into 2 halves. The northern half is called the northern hemisphere. The southern half is called the southern hemisphere. The northernmost point on Earth is called the North Pole. The southernmost point on Earth is called the South Pole.
Thank you, Sarah. I thought that was information that was helpful. That sometimes we forget those things. But our children are pretty smart. They're getting this. A few years ago, I was mentoring a seminary student from our congregation, and I was thrilled to learn that he was being certified in a program sponsored by our denomination called Earth Keepers. He was covenanting to learn about earth care and to educate other people as well. I was very impressed when he prepared a 6-week class of PowerPoint presentations to inform us about stewardship, and it was very well done. When did you first get perspective on the planet? Can you remember? Maybe you're one of the smart ones and you've always had it. Do you remember the first time you saw the photo of the Earth taken from the moon? Some of us are old enough to remember when that shot was taken. Farther away from the Earth than any human being had ever been before. So tiny in all that space, so fragile, so tiny that you could block it with your thumb. we might start to see the importance of the atmosphere that surrounds this earth, that very thin layer that protects us from the scorching heat of the sun. Did you realize that tiny orb was your earth home? Everything that was important to you? How could we not have changed when we saw that? Astronaut Russell Schweickart reflected on that from his perspective up there in space when he was on the moon. Rusty said, I met Gaia during 10 days in space. Gazing at her beautiful face, I'm still coming to know her. He closed his statement with these words, we pray for one more landing on the globe that gave us birth. May we rest our eyes on the fleecy skies and the cool green hills of earth. I need to say a few words about the music that I've chosen this morning, not just the hymns, but the words, the music of Paul Winter and the Paul Winter Consort. It was created in the 80s when Paul Winter was involved and invited to create an earth mass for St. John's Cathedral in New York City. Some of us have seen what he's done as a creative miracle. It includes sounds of whales and wolves and loons. Did you know that the sounds of whales can be recorded over 100 miles away from where the whales are? Some of those cries are mating calls. The sequence of sounds is repeated again and again. The composition of that album took months and many travels. The recording was made in the cathedral and in the Grand Canyon. Paul Winter looked to St. Francis of Assisi, who called animals to pray in their own fashion. Some of us remembered the canticle of Brother Sun and Sister Moon from St. Francis. Think of the explorers who've been inspired to find new lands, new horizons. Our history books are full. Lewis and Clark, expeditions to Alaska, Mount Everest, Africa. Think of the thousands of people who've gone to explore. Think of the thousands of people who go to the beach. Maybe they're there this weekend. Whole industries have been developed to feed our hunger to explore this planet. You probably get some of those mailings yourselves. We love to pay thousands of dollars to travel to see exotic places, to ski in Colorado, to fish in Florida, to hunt bear in North Carolina or Montana or Alaska, to travel around the world, to see the pyramids in Egypt or Chaco Canyon's ancient pueblos or kivas. But do we love it enough to honor it? Did you realize you say thank you for every drink of water? We take it for granted, don't we? How rare. Did you realize that we've never really given a name to our planet? Other planets have names. Mars, Venus, Uranus. We just call this Earth, Earth, what it's made out of. It's like calling our children boy or girl instead of giving them a name. Maybe if we named this beautiful planet, this beautiful blue-green orb, we'd honor it more. The people from whom folks with European heritage stole this land had strong traditions of honoring each other and the land. They taught the settlers a few things about honoring it, the soil and the water and the four-legged and the winged creatures. But it didn't take long for the newcomers to start exploiting what they found here. I suspect that I'm not the only person in this room who's on a number of mailing lists inviting us to contribute to saving the planet, the trees, the birds, the elephants, the donkeys, the chickens, the wolves, the horses, the dolphins. The list goes on. Every week there's a new charity or nonprofit organization that's requesting our funds, our time, and our help. We're invited to live green, to recycle, to reuse, to repurpose. I myself have collected over 100 pairs of old blue jeans that I've recycled and continue to recycle into book bags or cushion covers or homeless quilts or who knows what else. The list goes on. Actually, one of these, this was an old pair of blue jeans. Many of us regularly visit vintage clothing shops, Goodwill stores, what my friend Pat calls shit shacks, because they're so dusty and grubby. Some places look like hoarder barns. Maybe that's what they are. But we look for bargains. And more than that, we tend to believe that quality is a thing of the past, that current clothing and objects are programmed to self-destruct. We realize that we live in a very throwaway society. We've become so transient that folks just get rid of things instead of buying new, instead of keeping the same furniture. When they move, they just get rid of it. They put it on the curb and someone else takes it away. After all, we figure the quality is so fragile, it's not going to last through the next move. I have friends in Milwaukee who are getting ready to move to Boston. They told me they didn't intend to live. When they moved to Milwaukee, they thought they'd only be there for a little while, but it's been 8 years. So here they are. They met each other, they got married. Now they have 2 children. What will they do? Will they just put things on the curb and buy new when they go to Boston? Or will they pack it all up and take it with them? Things have changed. Generations have changed. Some of us still have things that belonged to our grandparents. My story of the family china that I saved so carefully and gave to my niece so that she could entertain. The dishes are still in the original boxes. She uses paper plates. Things have changed. Generations have changed. For some of us, it's depressing when we hear from folks who think that climate change is not an issue. Not all the news is sad. There is good support for recycling, for solar, for green building features. Master gardening groups are growing. It's in vogue to plant native plants instead of carpet grass. We're encouraged to plant trees, to buy hybrid vehicles, to become vegetarian. In spite of climate deniers, we cannot close our eyes to what surrounds us. And it seems to many of us that it's past time for us to take action. We here in Texas have been witness to, if not participants in, the grid concerns of our state. Many folks feel victimized by previous decisions made by those in authority. We do need to remember that we have a voice. I think it was Holly Near who sang in her music of the 1980s, "I can see and I can breathe," reminding us that we are alive and we need to be woke. What mindful ways can we awaken ourselves and each other and be responsible? How can we be responsible parents and grandparents to those who are younger, who will inherit this Gaia, this Gia, however we name it, and hopefully fall in love with it? There are a couple of authors that I've listed for you on the material in the bulletin. John Leinberger is one who talks about renewing the wilderness. And Phil Chard is another who's an author and a psychotherapist in Milwaukee. He's reminded me of the healing nature of our earth. Think about what the media shares with us, the popular media. I think about the movie on Golden Pond. You remember that movie with Jane Fonda and her dad and Katharine Hepburn, where her dad and her son are out there in the middle of the lake in the middle of the night, facing the wilds. Think about the movie A River Runs Through It, or the movie The Mission, about the priest with a load of armaments going up the Iguazu Falls. Think about the many ways in which human beings have been facing the elements. How many books and novels have been written about mountain climbs and wilderness, where we move to the wilderness? John Muir, for example, we move to the wilderness to find silence, to find healing, to find the holy. Those times when we get away give us time to reflect on our lives, to see ourselves from some new perspective. Julie Andrews said the hills are alive with the sound of music. Perhaps she's right. John Leinberger reminds us that the psalmist says, "Be still and know that I am God." In the prayer cycle of the Muslims, they stop 5 times a day to give thanks and separate themselves from their busy world. It's a codified practice. It requires people to retreat from their busyness and take a moment to reflect, to take a deep breath, to simplify, to gain some perspective, to take a time to redirect. Benedictine Buddhist monks set aside regular periods each day to unhurriedly and rhythmically do specific tasks. I hope we've all learned something about mindfulness, practices that help us to focus our energies. The common theme of those practices wraps around the theme that we not allow the necessary distractions of our world to hang on to us too tightly, or that we not attach ourselves too tightly to them. So many things demand our attention, but are they essential or are they superfluous? Jesus himself took intentional time away with his disciples, as well as time alone. Time to escape from the stresses, time to be with his God. And of course, those of us who are familiar with the Jesus story know that many people followed him And he even went out on a boat and separated himself so that he could have some distance from them. Do we need to get away from the realities to find the time when we can center, when we can practice those mindful practices? Speaking of popular culture, I remember the scene in the movie Lady in Red. Now that's an old popular movie. Julia Roberts invites her new friend to cop a squat in the park, where she's inviting him to take off his socks and shoes and walk in the grass. This strange behavior caused him to change radically. And in the last scene of the movie, we see that he's changed from a money-grabbing guy to someone who cares about other people. Such lucid moments allow us to see the world differently, from a new perspective, like seeing the earth from a distance. Remember that Bette Midler movie, Bette Midler music, From a Distance? How we saw our fragile marble so far away. When you saw it for the first time, did you take your breath? Did it take your breath away? It still does for me. I wear it around my neck. I spoke with a friend a few weeks ago who teaches high school students in San Antonio to an alternate school. He was advising me on landscaping around my casita. And he talked about how difficult it is to teach this population of young people about the earth. I was reminded of my friend Susan, who had a very interesting project for stewardship many years ago. She invited students to pick a square foot of land somewhere, just any square foot. It could be grass covered, it could be dirt. Just take that square foot and inventory everything that you find in that square foot. It's not just carpet grass and worms. There's so much more. Hundreds of things. A few years ago, one of my parishioners and her children spent the afternoon in the backyard just noticing the diverse things that they could see there. The bugs, as well as the flowers and the trees. As she put her daughter to bed that night, she was very surprised to hear her daughter say, "Mom, that was the funnest day I've ever had." What wonders they discovered. I ask you a few questions. What would you like to do to simplify your life? How would you go about it? Are there pictures or symbols of nature in your home or your office? What wilderness is available to you? Do you have to go far? Or can you just go to your backyard? Have you ever had a wow moment? Did you take time to reflect on it? Or journal what it meant to you? Almost every human being has had some experience of healing through this planet. Whether it's making mud pies as children, or sunbathing on the beach, or mountain climbing. Countless people have paid their therapists to tell them to go to the beach, or take off their shoes, or walk in the sand, or just take a vacation, or go to the hillside. Maybe we need to listen to Phil as he advises people to take vacations. Even Moses was instructed to take off his shoes when he saw the burning bush. Now our healing earth may need us to help it. We've somehow managed to damage it for our own profit. I'd invite you to take this little earth marble and hold it in your hand for a tactile moment of meditation. I'm gifting you with this tiny marble. Take it home, put it in your pocket, put it where you'll see it, where you'll be reminded of this beautiful blue-green planet. You might see white swirls or yellow or green markings that somehow remind you of the continents, the land masses. I knew that would happen. As you hold the tiny orb in your hand or between your thumb and your finger, I invite you to see the planet from a distance. I remember reading the first comments of the first NASA astronaut when he saw the Earth from space and was so overwhelmed by the fragile appearance. Reflect on the amazing diversity of our planet, the oceans and seas, the mountains and deserts, the Grand Canyon, your favorite spot. Maybe it's your backyard. Maybe it's the wonder of a national park. Or the bluebonnets on the side of the road in Texas. Think of the well-known bat caves less than an hour away from here, where millions of bats fly out at twilight every evening to devour a ton of insects. Think of the huge variety of wildlife in our rivers and streams, lakes and oceans. Think of all the birds that fly, all the different birds, the different colors, the calls. Think of the birds that fly and those that swim. How many creatures are there still roaming the planet? Creatures you may never see. How many are only seen in zoos? How many are now extinct? Do you give thanks for every glass of water you drink? For every time you shower? How are we to be keepers of this beautiful earth? We close our meditation with a commitment to put your passion to practice in some new way, to make your love for the planet visible. May it be so.